You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans. Hey, that was a long one. I like that. Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and I want to start with the NBA and some controversy surrounding Kyrie Irving and some players not wanting to resume the season. There have been a bunch of articles written by these NBA insiders about what was allegedly said on a Friday conference call with over 80 players. But the simple fact is, I don't really care what any of the insiders wrote. It's he said, she said. Shams Charania, who I like, of The Athletic. I read this article, and it was interesting to read, but I don't want to say it's not true, because I'm sure that he's relaying the information to the best of his ability. But it's all hearsay. Again, it's all he said, she said. If this was a court of law, and Shams was testifying that Kyrie said this, and Chris Paul said that, it would be thrown out because it's hearsay. I don't know what to believe. Do I believe that Kyrie Irving was a big part of the phone call, and that he represented a faction of the players that don't want to resume the season? Yes, I believe that. 100%. I'm sure he'd be the first person to tell you that. But what's getting lost in this is that Kyrie Irving is a vice president of the NBPA. And when you're a leader in a union, you have a duty to your members to relay their concerns. That's what Kyrie Irving is doing. He's relaying the concerns of himself and everyone else who feels this way, that maybe it's not the best thing to resume this season. There is somewhere between 450 to 510 active NBA players. Of that number, I'm sure there's a percentage that doesn't want to resume the season. I don't blame them at all for not wanting to resume the season. This is dangerous, what we're asking them to do. I don't care if Anthony Fauci is supportive of the plan. He called it creative. He thinks it can work. Okay, great. The simple fact is there's still an element of danger here. We should still be social distancing. The states that are reopening are saying you still need to follow social distancing protocols. It's kind of hard to do that while you're playing basketball. We talk about giving players like James Harden an inch of space. Imagine giving them 6 feet of space. I mean, come on. There's a real chance that a player gets the coronavirus. It's possible it spreads. And then we're back at square one. When did we all start taking the coronavirus seriously? When Rudy Gobert got it. That led to the entire league getting shut down. The NBA has said that these players and staff members are going to be tested every other day. Well, let's say you're tested Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. If you get the coronavirus on Tuesday and you're playing on Tuesday, that's not found out until Wednesday. Then you have to isolate everyone that person came in contact with, and that throws this whole thing out of whack. This whole system is already fragile. If someone else gets the coronavirus, that's dangerous. The whole thing could be shut down. But that's not the biggest concern among these players. The reason I started with it is because it's the hardest thing to deal with. The easiest thing to deal with is, ironically, the players' support of the Black Lives Matter movement. The reason I'm saying that it's the easiest thing to deal with is because the players are really concerned about providing a distraction at a time when a distraction isn't warranted. This is really the first time in the history of this country that there's nothing else going on. So we don't have an excuse to not listen to their concerns. And I'm saying we because I'm white. You know, I understand that when I'm pulled over by the police or I'm talking to the police, there's no real risk of me dying. With African Americans, it's a huge, huge, huge possibility. I mean, I'll tell you, if you wanted to try to rattle off the list of African Americans that have been the victims of police brutality, you'd miss a lot of them. And that is so wrong, I can't even begin to express it. You know, for the longest time, there were a lot of people that just weren't getting it. They were saying it was one bad apple doesn't spoil a bunch. The majority of police officers are good. They weren't giving it the time of day. Now, we have to give it the time of day. It's good that we're giving it the time of day. It's bad that it took more deaths to get there. But hopefully, people like Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and the person from Atlanta whose name I can't remember, Rayshard Brooks? Isn't that who it was? Yeah, Rayshard Brooks. Okay. Yeah, he was shot because he fell asleep at a Wendy's. He was drinking. He probably shouldn't have been behind the wheel, but that's no excuse to die. You shouldn't die because of that. Again, there are so many of these examples, you can't keep them straight. It's terrible. It's so wrong. That was the argument for people for a long time. Oh, these are isolated incidents. We don't need to change the whole system because of it. Well, now it's getting to the point where this is happening almost every day. Or at least it seems like it's happening every day. I saw this on Twitter. The body cameras that police are being forced to wear isn't stopping their racism, it's just exposing it. And you know what? They're right. I don't remember who said it, but that person is 100% right. I don't want to say that every cop is racist. There are a lot of good cops out there. But I'd be an idiot if I didn't realize that there is systemic racism within police departments all over this country. A white guy and a black guy can commit the same crime in the same state, in the same city, and be arrested by the same officer. That white guy is going to live. That black guy has a real chance of dying. And let's say he doesn't die. Let's say he makes it to trial. The white guy gets a slap on the wrist. Meanwhile, the black guy gets 20 years. It's terrible. By the way, I may be coming off as insensitive by saying black guy. I have been learning AP style in college, and a lot of what I was reading was saying that it's okay to say black people and black guy and stuff like that. I always thought the politically correct way of saying it was Caucasian and African American, but if saying black guy is now acceptable, okay. You know, it's Black Lives Matter. It's not African American Lives Matter. So, I guess it's okay. I just don't want to come off as insensitive. These are really sensitive times. A bunch of people, regardless of skin color, are rising up and saying enough is enough. These people shouldn't be dying. And it's about damn time. Again, it's terrible that people like Taylor, Floyd, and Brooks are dead. But perhaps some good can come of it if there's real change because of their deaths. You don't want these people to die in vain. Trayvon Martin died in vain. George Zimmerman got off scot-free. And for God's sake, he was signing bags of Skittles. He auctioned off the gun that he used to kill Martin. I mean, you want to talk about insensitive. Holy God. I understand the guy needs money, but for God's sake, you're profiting off an innocent kid's death. You've got to come up with a better way to make money. And in this specter, we're asking these players to divert attention from the movement and to put it towards sports. That's wrong. This isn't the time for distraction. This is the time for real change. Now, there are some incremental changes. The use of no-knock warrants, which is what killed Breonna Taylor, has been banned in the state, in the city of Louisville, Kentucky. New York City has finally banned chokeholds in reaction to George Floyd's death, which was in Minnesota. But still, other states are taking notice. Obviously, a chokehold is what killed Eric Garner. I mean, for God's sake, the guys are saying, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Mama, help. You already have him down on the ground. Shift your position, for God's sake. There's a special place in hell for these cops. You know, for years we were taught that cops are good. We should always obey the police. No. No. Absolutely not. You have a right to question authority. I don't care who that authority is. A cop your boss, whoever, you have a right to question him. And if an unlawful order is made of you, if a cop wants you to do something that is illegal, or he asks you something that he shouldn't be asking you, by all means, speak up. Now, if you express resistance to that request, you shouldn't expect to die over it. You know, if it's a lawful order and you resist arrest and you do something stupid, okay, you know, don't be an idiot. But if a cop wants you to do something that he knows is illegal, you absolutely have the right to question it. I remember being on the intersection of the Grand Concourse and, oh man, I want to say Willis Avenue. I don't remember the cross street. I remember I was going to make the right onto the Grand Concourse to get to Yankee Stadium. I don't remember the other street. I thought I did. No, you know what? It was 149th. I think it was 149th. Now that I'm thinking about it, Willis Avenue doesn't hit the Grand Concourse. You want to hear something? It's been so long since I've driven there, I've forgotten these streets. Like, there's no one better at getting to Yankee Stadium than me. I know the back roads. I know the back roads to the back roads. But it's been a long time. You forget the street names. I know how to do it. You make a right here, you make a left here, blah, 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 blah. But if someone asks me the street names, and this is, you know, even if it's in the dead of the season, I'm not that good with it. Imagine not having driven there since October. That's another issue. I'll get into it later, but this is a lot more important. I saw a cop. He was to the left of me. I'm stopped at a red light. I'm in the turning lane. No rights on red in New York City. All 5 boroughs. This cop is in the left lane, and he cuts in front of me to make the right turn. No siren, no nothing. So I honked at him. My father didn't like that I did it. He was like, Jacob, what are you doing? It's like, I'm saying to that cop what he did was wrong. He didn't like that I did that, but I was glad I did it. Call the police out. The worst part of the George Floyd death was that cop that was standing in front of that officer and had his back to him. That was the worst part of the whole thing. That cop could have stopped it. And instead, that cop let George Floyd die. All he had to do was pull the other officer off of him, Derek Chauvin, I think was his name, pull him off, keep Floyd down on the ground, or get him into the back of a squad car, and that's it. It's done. We never hear of it. When you see something wrong, you should call it out. There was a song by Paper Lace in the 70s. I think it was 74. One hit wonder, Billy, don't be a hero tonight. Well, sometimes we need heroes. If that's what it takes to prevent another African American from dying at the hands of the police, we need heroes. And these players can be heroes. See, I don't think joining protests is the way to do it. These NBA players are going to have such a huge platform that whatever message they try to get across, people will have to listen to. There will be no choice. There will be no other option. What these players should do is all of them should say to Commissioner Silver, we are not playing unless we are allowed to support the Black Lives Matter movement during games. Not before games, not after games, during games. It's easy to tune out before a game. But during the game, yeah, do it. That's the best way to get the message across. That's like the whole thing with the kneeling. The kneeling isn't the best way to get that message across. When you kneel and make that gesture, a lot of people aren't associating that with police brutality. They're associating it with the military and the country as a whole. I understand what you want it to mean, but there's a better way to protest police brutality. I respected Colin Kaepernick for writing pigs on his cleats. I didn't respect him for kneeling. I stand by the fact that you shouldn't kneel. I don't think that's the best way to protest police brutality. The message gets lost when you make that drastic of a gesture. John Carlos and Tommy Smith in Mexico City in 1968 did the Black Power salute. They were trying to raise awareness. Instead, it came off as if they were disrespecting the country. There's a better way to protest police brutality than kneeling. That's my whole point. I mean, maybe you play with a black basketball. Maybe you put something on the jersey. Maybe you put something on the shorts or the shoes. Or you superimpose a graphic on ESPN. Or maybe you could just put it on the court. Black Lives Matter. The NBA would be hard-pressed to not allow it. ESPN would go for it 100%. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Maybe you don't feel comfortable playing because there are more important things going on in this country, like the protests. Well, you can use that platform to amplify the protests. Don't think of it as diverting attention from the protests. Think of it as furthering their cause. These players need to be able to support Black Lives Matter during the game. That is the best way to get all these players in support of coming back and to support a very worthwhile cause. There is no question that Black Lives Matter is doing the right thing in highlighting all these preventable deaths. I mean, this is coming from a Trump supporter here. I'm saying that there's systemic racism in the police. I'm saying that we need change. I'm saying that I support what the Black Lives Matter movement is doing. I'm not supporting the looting and the vandalizing. But I'll tell you one thing I do support. The removal of the Confederate monuments. I retweeted something at Real Jacob Valk. The people who carried the Confederate flag killed people carrying the American flag. If this is about the flag, why do you want Confederate monuments? They were a foreign country. You're honoring a foreign country that killed American citizens. I am so for the removal of all Confederate monuments. The removal of the names of Confederate generals from forts. It's not even funny. Yes, get rid of all of them. I draw the line with the people like John C. Calhoun and Thomas Jefferson and George Washington and Christopher Columbus. I don't like that. But the Confederate stuff? Yeah, get rid of that. Absolutely get rid of all of that. You know, I'm not one of those Trump supporters that just falls in line with whatever the president says. If I disagree with something he's saying, yeah, I'm going to speak out against it. I mean, I think he's right to say that he's not going to watch an NFL game if the players are kneeling. In my opinion, that act, regardless of what the players want it to mean, does mean protesting the military and protesting the flag. There's a better way to raise awareness for police brutality than kneeling. Write pigs on the cleats, wear a patch on the uniform, write something on the pants, put something on the helmet. Do that. That's so much better. I understand that the NFL has been against that historically, but Goodell would change his mind now. I promise you he would. He can't not. There'd be too much pressure against him. I'm with the president there, but I'm not with the president with not renaming the Confederate stuff and getting rid of all that. I'm not saying remove it entirely because that's a part of history, and we should remember history. If we don't remember history, we're doomed to repeat it. But what we should do is put them in museums. Don't put them out in public where anyone can go to them and they don't understand the context. If you put them in a museum with a proper display and docents who are there to explain it, yeah, we can get the proper context for people who don't understand it or don't know about it. The bottom line is the players should play. They may be uncomfortable because of the coronavirus. That's okay. Anyone who doesn't want to play because of the coronavirus shouldn't be forced to play. And they may be uncomfortable because they're afraid of diverting attention from the Black Lives Matter movement. But I think there's a way to play games and provide a better platform for that movement. The players should absolutely be allowed to put something on the jersey, the shorts, their shoes, even play with a different ball. Put something on the basket, put something on the court, superimpose graphics. I absolutely think that's the right thing to do. Not just to support this movement, but in general, it's the right thing to do. It's been too long. We've turned a blind eye to this for too long. Now is the time for action. Now is the time to listen to the concerns and institute real change based on their entirely justified concerns. Okay. Again, if I used any insensitive terms, I'm really, really sorry. That wasn't my goal. For the longest time, I thought the politically correct term was African American. And now it's becoming okay, I think, to say black in that context. If it's not, I'm really, really sorry. My goal isn't to offend anyone in that way. If you disagree with my opinions, okay, that's perfectly fine. That's the goal of this show, to spark debate. As is the goal of any sports talk show, to spark debate. But if I spark debate by using an insensitive term, I'm really sorry. I don't think I did. But if I did it unintentionally, again, I'm really, really sorry. Moving on now to baseball. And it seems like we're going to get a 50-some-odd game season. The MLBPA rejected the latest proposal by the league. They're not going to make a counteroffer. The league isn't going to revise their proposal. It seems like we're going to get a 50 to 59 game season. And if that is the case, just cancel the season. The league can't survive a 59-game season just as they can't survive a canceled season. They have shot themselves in the foot here. It's done. It's over. They had the opportunity to fix this, and they were penny smart but pound foolish for too long. They blew it. Both sides blew it. A 59-game season is an absolute joke. It is a disgrace to the game. What's the best thing about baseball? The marathon. You can be terrible in April and May, but turn it on June to September, and you're in the playoffs. Now a 10-game losing streak, that's it. You're done. Tank the season. Both sides shot themselves in the foot. You know, that's the thing. There are people taking sides saying that the league really can't afford this. You know, there's no source of revenue, so how can you expect the owners to pay for it? And there are other people saying, well, the owners are billionaires, they can pay it, blah, blah, blah. Both sides are in the wrong. Both sides are right. See, that's the thing. Both of their points are valid, but both sides are wrong in not compromising. Compromise for the sake of the fans. If you learned nothing from Long Gone Summer, the newest 30 for 30, which I liked, it's that the home run boom that was partially caused by steroids saved baseball. While watching the documentary, in the back of your mind, you were thinking to yourself, McGwire and Sosa used PEDs. But you know what? That saved baseball. Attendance was terrible before that. After that, it went up. Steroids saved baseball. They just did. That's fact. That's indisputable fact. Anyone who says it didn't is lying. That's why I don't have a problem with putting the steroid users in the Hall of Fame. They saved baseball. If there was no steroids and we went back to baseball as usual in the early 90s, baseball may not have survived. Jason Foster of the Sporting News said that the average age of an MLB fan is 57. 57! No league can survive that way. They need young blood. Go to a baseball game when you can and try to keep track of how many kids you see. Not teenagers, not young adults, kids. Like they haven't hit their teens yet. You can count them on one hand. Selig turned a blind eye to steroids. Then when the pressure got too hot, he changed it. See, Mark McGwire made a good point. It wasn't illegal at the time. He said if it was illegal, he wouldn't have done it. You can believe him or not. That's up to you, but he's right that it wasn't illegal at the time. No one had heard of it. You know, these people saved baseball, but now the home run has gotten so stale that there can't be another boom to save baseball. It's done. Baseball may be doomed. I don't know how it can come back from this. I would argue that a 59-game season is actually worse than a canceled season, because absence makes the heart grow fonder. So maybe the baseball fans would come back in 2021. Hey, we haven't seen baseball in over a year. I miss it. I'm going to watch the games. Yeah, I got screwed out of a season in 2020, but I miss it. I'll tell you, I would watch it. I want to see Garrett Cole in pinstripes in a meaningful game. I want to see Judge. I want to see Torres. I want to see Sanchez. I want to see Stanton. Would there be some fans that would be so turned off that they won't watch baseball again? They'll say it, but they probably will. It's kind of tough. It's tough to get out of a sport. I mean, I'll tell you, as a Yankee fan, I've been spoiled. The Yankees have never had a losing record in my lifetime, but in the mid-2010s, they were bad. They were really, really bad. 2013, they were dreadful. 2014, they were dreadful. I don't care what the record says. 2015, they limped into the playoffs, didn't score a run in the wild card game. I got sick for it, thank God. 2016, they were dreadful. Yeah, they finished with at least 84 wins all of those years, but you know what? The eye test didn't lie. They were bad teams. And towards the end of those seasons, it got really hard to watch them. In September of those years, it was, I really don't want to watch the games. I want to play video games. I want to study. I want to do all that stuff. But I came back the next year. Once you get into a team, it's really hard to stay out of it. You can be disinterested for a little bit. The Detroit Tigers, their season was over in June. Same thing with the Orioles. And yeah, a bunch of those fans were out of it for a long time, but I guarantee you they'd have come back in April with a sense of optimism. That's what fandom is. Fandom is thinking that your team can go on a crazy run. Your brain will tell you it is nuts, but your heart thinks it. It's okay to listen to your heart as a fan. Now, it's not okay to do that as a sports talk show host. You should provide rational commentary. Like me, for instance. I have never let my fandom stand in the way of what I believe. Perfect example. I'm wearing a New York Jets shirt right now. In the lead up to the 2018 draft, I was killing Sam Darnold. I didn't see it. I didn't think he'd be a great quarterback. I thought he'd go first overall, but that's just because I thought it was a lock that he would go first overall. I didn't think he should have gone first overall. You can ask anyone. Dominic, Eric, Nick. You can ask all of them. My order was Josh Rosen, Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, and Sam Darnold. When Sam Darnold was picked by the Jets, I was screaming via texts to all my friends. I screamed on the air at WHPC the day after. I didn't let my fandom stand in the way of that. But did I want Sam Darnold to succeed? Of course I did. That's what fandom is. It's not, you think this guy is going to be terrible or this team is going to be terrible, so you don't watch the games. It's that feeling in the bottom of your heart, in the pit of your stomach, that makes you think, maybe this is the year. And that goes for any team. We all start at 0 at the beginning of the season. Everyone's tied for first. The saying, it ain't over till it's over, by Yogi, it's true. Now, granted, some seasons end earlier than others. But, for the time being, you can think, yeah, it's okay. This is the year. And I understand that, wow, I went down a crazy rabbit hole there. I understand that Major League Baseball is kind of exemplifying that with a shortened season, that anyone can go on a crazy run and make the playoffs. But it's 59 games. It's over 100 games less than a standard season. At the absolute maximum, it's 59 games. I mean, you've got to be kidding me. The league can't survive that. You may see a team like the Toronto Blue Jays, a really young and exciting team, go nuts. The shortened seasons always favor the younger teams because they have the stamina to survive it. I mean, it's a real possibility you see a team like, I don't know, the Orioles or the Tigers go on a crazy run. And then they won't make the playoffs again for another 5 years. It's like, wait a minute, what's this blip? Why did they make the playoffs this year? Well, because it was a shortened season. Mariners, too. It was a shortened season. It favored the younger teams. I understand that Major League Baseball may like that. They'll get the fans, the casual fans, really interested in their teams again. But that's not the right way to do it. It's better to cancel the season than to have a mockery. 59 games. It's going to be really hard for me to get into that. I'll tell you right now. I can't even imagine myself watching just 59 games of the Yankees. Oh, God. There's a part of me that would rather watch soccer. And I am such a fair-weather soccer fan, it's not even funny. I'll watch the World Cup. That's pretty much it. If nothing else is on, I'll watch NYCFC. There's a real chance I watch the MLS over the Yankees, because it's going to be so hard for me to get into this season. I like what the MLS is doing with this tournament that they have. I mean, that should mean nothing to you if you disagree with it. I'm just saying, as a casual soccer fan, I like it. Both sides of this were incredibly wrong. They screwed over the fans. It's going to be really tough for the sport to come back from it. The die has been cast already. There's nothing that the MLB can do. A shortened season won't save them. It may be better to have a canceled season. Again, absence makes the heart grow fonder. It's just a shame that both sides couldn't come together for that 114-game season that the MLBPA wanted. That would have been the best way to go about it. I could have even accepted 82 games. I can't accept 59. That's too much of a cut. I could have accepted 70-some-odd games. I can't accept 50. I can't accept 60. It's too much of a cut. It's too much of a mockery to the game. Just cancel the season and let's get back to it in 2021. And whatever's going to happen after is going to happen after. You've already screwed the fans over. You're not going to get them back with a shortened season. Both sides, Rob Manfred and Tony Clark, should be ashamed of themselves. I want to go back to the NBA for a minute, and this has nothing to do with the resumption of games. According to Mark Stein of the New York Times, and corroborated by Vincent Goodwill of Yahoo Sports, Troy Weaver is the favorite to get the Pistons GM job. Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN said that Mark Hughes and Jeff Peterson are still in the running, but it seems like Weaver's the front runner, so it's worth talking about Weaver. He's a really smart guy. He's been in the running for top jobs for 2 years. The Pistons were actually interested in hiring him in 2018. And after that, when there were rumors that other GMs were on the hot seat. Weaver's name was mentioned. The Wizards were supposedly interested. The Bulls interviewed him. Now it seems like he's going to get a shot with the Pistons. I think it's a good fit. Weaver's a smart guy. He's been with Sam Presti for over a decade. Now, Presti hasn't been perfect. Presti's made a ton of mistakes. Trading James Harden, not wanting to pay him what he deserved. Instead choosing to pay Serge Ibaka, oh God, is one of the worst decisions in modern NBA history. It's right up there with the Pearson-Garnett trade. But he's also been really good at drafting. He's the one who drafted Harden. He's the one who drafted Durant. He's the one who drafted Westbrook. He drafted Steven Adams. He drafted Ibaka. The guy knows how to scout. And I think some of that rubbed off onto Weaver. Again, this is a guy who's well respected all throughout the league. He would have made sense for the Knicks. It makes sense for the Pistons to go with a younger guy. For the Pistons to get back into relevancy, it's going to be really, really tough. They traded Andre Drummond. Blake Griffin is on a terrible contract. I mean, the guy who they picked last year in the first round, Sekou Doumbouya, I liked. But he was so blasted raw. I mean, he's still raw. He has talent, but it's going to take him a while to put it all together. Luke Kennard is a solid shooter, but he doesn't play defense. It's going to take a long time for the Pistons to get back to the mountaintop. They need a young guy to come in and be in this for the long haul, to have a good vision, and to have the patience to execute it. It seems like Weaver's that guy. Again, really smart, highly respected, all throughout the league. I think it's a really good move if the Pistons bring him in. I do want to talk about a basketball death that really flew under the radar this past weekend, and it shouldn't have, because this guy was one of the best players of the mid to late 50s. And that is Dick Garmaker, who passed away on Saturday at the age of 87. It's okay if you don't know the name. The guy played from 1955 to 1961. But in that time, Garmaker was one of the most underrated players in the league. And is still incredibly underrated. When you think of the NBA in the mid to late 50s, do you think of Dick Garmaker? No, you don't. You think of guys like Bob Cousy. You think of guys like Slater Martin, Clyde Lovellette, Vern Mickelson. You don't think of Garmaker. And Garmaker was teammates with all the guys I just mentioned, except for Cousy. It's a travesty. He went to college at Minnesota, was born in Hibbing, Minnesota, so he decided to stay local. He actually went to Hibbing Community College and then transferred to Minnesota. Proud to be a Minnesotan. Good for him. I've been to Minnesota. Very nice state. Maybe not now with their police, but when I went, I liked it. In Garmaker's last year in college, 1955, he made his only All-America team. And his number 53 was retired by the Golden Gophers in 2011. at that time, the NBA draft was territorial. So the only team that could take him was the Minneapolis Lakers. And in Garmaker's rookie year, he didn't get much of a shot. But then his second year, he exploded onto the scene. George Mikan had retired, but Garmaker stepped up, and I don't want to say he made Lakers fans forget about Mikan, because how can you? But Garmaker stepped in and provided a jolt to that Lakers team. He made his first All-Star team, was second on the Lakers in scoring behind only Clyde Lovellette. Also that year, he made his only All-NBA team when he made the second team. The Lakers had a good offense that year, but a terrible defense. They made the playoffs, but they really weren't a great team. The year after that, 57-58, the Lakers were even worse. They finished with 19 wins and 53 losses. Lovellette had moved on from the Lakers, and the team was led by Vern Mickelson. Larry Faust came over from the Fort Wayne Pistons. He was the Lakers' second leading scorer, but Garmaker was their third leading scorer. He made his second All-Star team, finished with 16 points per game, 5.5 rebounds per game, and a little under 3 assists per game. The year after that was Garmaker's last full year with the Lakers. It was also Elgin Baylor's rookie year. Baylor was insane. 25 points per game, 15 rebounds per game, 4 assists per game. Garmaker, Mickelson, and Faust all had to take a step back, but they all did well. Garmaker averaged just over 13.5 points per game, 4.5 rebounds per game, and 3 assists per game. The Lakers would go all the way to the NBA Finals, but they were swept by the Celtics. Garmaker played well in that series, 19.3 points per game and 4.3 rebounds per game. The year after that was the Lakers' last year in Minneapolis. John Kundla was the Lakers coach from 1947 to 1959. He lived in Minneapolis almost his whole life. He didn't want to leave Minneapolis, so instead of staying on as Lakers coach after making the NBA Finals, he went to the University of Minnesota. The Lakers decided to blow everything up. It took them a while to get back on top, but Garmaker wouldn't see it as he was traded to the Knicks for Ray Felix. There were also a couple draft picks in there, but that's not important. It's okay if you don't know who Ray Felix was. All you need to know about him is that he was a good center for the Knicks. He wasn't great, he wasn't terrible. He had one really good year where he won Rookie of the Year and made the All-Star team. Again, good, not great. But he was traded for Garmaker. In that season with the Lakers and Knicks, he made his last All-Star team. The Knicks were absolutely terrible that year, and the year after, which was Garmaker's last year, but Garmaker had a solid year playing behind Willie Knowles and Richie Guerin, as he averaged 15.5 points per game, 4 rebounds per game, and 3 assists per game. Alright, long show today. I like it. It's weird. The Monday shows have been really long, and the weekday shows haven't been anywhere close. I mean, I guess that's to be expected. With no live sports, you get the culmination of the weekend to break down on Monday. I mean, I went down some rabbit holes today, but I feel like they were all justified. Until tomorrow, I am Jacob Valk saying that I'm a light eater. When it gets light, I start eating.